The Bargewright Inn, an adventure location in the north in Faerun or Forgotten Realms. This particular locale begins in the 1370s in the old second and third edition timeline of about 35 people, but occasionally during the certain months and summer nights can balloon up to 750 people. By the 1480s, this town is considered to be an actual town rather than a little hamlet and stopover with probably about the same size population, 700 or 800 people, and is known simply as Bargewright. It is named after the proprietor, Benton Bargewright, who has the best last surname of all time for an innkeeper, and is again, a hamlet and stopover, a location that is reasonably close to Waterdeep, and it would make a very good starting location for a 5th edition or other edition Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Now, this is taken from Volo's Guide to the North, although I'll show you the map from Princes of the Apocalypse, which also takes place in the north and around this region, and this is a location that the player characters could visit. There's also this image, which here's Forgotten Realms wiki, of the Bargewright Inn is the building with the two towers, plus the caravan paddocks around it and the surrounding landscape and the village itself. The village itself is very, very small in the time of the 1370s. It is obviously expanded to become the town of Bargewright and probably has some outskirt farms and other maybe halfling holes by that time. By the way, I called him Benton Bargewright. It's Feston Bargewright. Maybe Benton's his cousin. Who knows? Now, as you go in the town location, you do get some background behind it and some description of what the overall inn looks like in the paddocks. I won't go into great detail about this, but you can read it yourself from, again, Volo's Guide to the North, which you can find for free online if you can't find a physical copy, although I'd really recommend finding a physical copy. You have all the different locations for the old map here, printed in War 4, 2nd edition. This includes where the wet crossing is, the tavern that's located here, a various other businesses, such as the House of Healing, which is actually a physic, not a temple, and the Inn Stables Tabras, which is another sort of a rooming house slash house of the evening. And there's some other locales here as well, shops that the player characters might stop at, as well as some market stalls. And as I go through here, here's one of those shops. Halit's Horseshoes. This is a smith or the local smith, which would give the player characters someone to mingle with that they would likely encounter being a smith. Probably someone that would buy and sell basic metal goods or might have a couple hundred gold to buy secondhand metal items, weapons, and armor from player characters' various adventures. Here's the healing house, the physic. Again, she is not a cleric. She essentially can make remedies. You could say, if you're playing 5th edition, that she can brew potions, not using magic, like, say, basic healing potions. There is a wheelwright, again, who fixes wheels, because wagons come through here all the time. There is Roldar's pipes, locks, and tobacco and fine furniture. This is a location that I'm sure the halflings in town might have some connection to. There's probably halflings living in the hills around this area because, halfling holes tend to be out in the hills. And not the most, not the kind of location every player character will go to, but a few of them might. Like, say, a rogue or someone who needs a pipe or some unique items while they're in the village of Bargewright. There's also Chandril's Pack Sack Aplenty, which is essentially a general store and provisioner. Player characters will likely visit this location. This individual, if Chandril is still alive during the time of your campaign, might be a important source of rumors or information. There's also the Wet Crossing Tavern, the only tavern in town at the time of the 1370s, although in the later time periods there may be other such locations. Again, we get the map of the local region. Bargewright and Bargewright Inn is on the other side of the river to the village of Ironford. These do come into play during Prince of the Apocalypse and Storm King's Thunder, the Golden Fields, which is both a town and an expansive temple of Shantea, lie to the south. This is very notable. You can also see where the town of Amphil is and Rasalanthar and how close it is to Waterdeep and some other locations in the north, immediately around Waterdeep, or what I like to call Greater Waterdavia. There is the pricings for the different drinks in the town, or sorry, I should say in the tavern. There's the cost of staying at the inn and what services are provided. 1 gold a night might seem high according to standard prices presented in 5th edition. But of course, editions vary in their prices. But not all inns cost the same, especially in Waterdeep. If you've seen Volo's Guide to Waterdeep, that is. There is the two feast halls, Belvin's House of Good Cheer, a feast hall, and occasional temple. This is not the typical temple you would find. They do allow most faiths to worship here as it has an altar. They do not allow Malar or their worshippers to worship here, and other hostile faiths, except for Tempest and Helm. Now, this is the kind of place the player characters might come to visit and might run into a low ranking cleric, perhaps likely a cleric of Shandacul, who is a god of the wanderers and wind, and very likely a cleric from the Golden Fields, or say maybe a halfling cleric of Shandala, or Yandala, I should say, that might be here preaching to the various folks, or maybe someone a little more interesting. Uh, there is a goddess named Shares, who is a part of the Mulhorandi pantheon, who wanders the realms. Perhaps one of her clerics, perhaps a tabaxi, is currently at this feast hall when the player characters arrive. A lot of things you can do there. Then there's Tabras. I mentioned them. It's essentially a rooming house, boarding house, but it's also a house of the evening where exotic individuals can be paid for the evening, and the player characters will probably have a great stay if they happen to go there. Now, this is again a very small town surrounded by in the middle of a bunch of Waterdeep's hinterlands. There are no major nations anywhere around here. I mean, the Silver Marches exist for a while to the north of here, but other than that, it's just isolated towns and city states. As a result, Bargewright Inn is a great starting location, as I noted earlier, for a new band of adventurers, a great stopover location, a place the player characters could use as a base of operations, at least short term, for exploring local dungeon crawls or mingling with the various plots and schemes in the area. As it's noted here, the Zentarium have been trying to buy into the town and get their hooks into the area for some time, which would make an interesting little subplot if the player characters come here. And who knows, maybe there's some weird cults or something odd happening out in just outside the borders of the town, or maybe even in its basements. Overall, Bargewright Inn as a location is a 5 out of 5 star location. It's something I would recommend DMs use for their campaign, especially if their player characters happen to come to this location and explore it and use it as a base and do what you want with it. It is a fantastic place to visit in Forgotten Realms.